Last week, we discussed in considerable detail the problem of evil. Evil in the creation of a God who is supposed to be all-powerful and all-good. In the course of that discussion, we got an idea of what good and evil really are. We saw how they are inseparable from one another, how they are part and parcel of relative existence. So the problem of evil can never be solved, it can only be transcended. And evolution, what is it? From a Vedantic point of view, evolution is nothing but an expression of this attempt on the part of an individual soul to go beyond all duality. An expression of the attempt on the part of a Jivatma to go beyond all limitations and to recover its original wholeness. Here we must keep in mind that from this purely spiritual standpoint, good and evil are both evil. Mind you, from a purely spiritual standpoint, good and evil are both evil, dharma and adharma are both adharma, happiness and misery are both misery. Why? Because both make the soul forget what it really is. Both bind the soul, both limit the soul. As Swami Vivekananda said, evil is an iron chain and good is a golden chain, but both of them bind equally. So what exactly is evil then? We heard it is the opposition of the finite to the infinite. Opposition of the finite to the infinite. The infinite is, so to say, imprisoned in the shell of the finite. That is what evil actually is. And anything that strengthens that shell is also evil. The infinite has to break out of that shell, undergo pain and suffering in the process of coming back into its own. What is this infinite and finite? Matter is finite and spirit is infinite. In Vedanta, matter is called the not self, anatma, and spirit is called the self, atma. Throughout the creation, there is a perpetual, constant struggle between the two. Matter trying to imprison spirit, and spirit struggling to break free from that prison of matter. All the activity that is going on in the universe, everything is only an expression of this struggle. Spirit trying to break free from the limitations of matter and manifest itself fully. That is what evolution is. Spirit struggling to return into itself, to come into its own. Now, if according to Vedanta, the ultimate reality is one non-dual spirit, ekamevadvitiyam, if there is only one non-dual reality, from where did matter come in the first place? Well, there is only one source. So, it must have come from the Absolute itself, because there is nothing else. That amounts to saying that it is the Absolute alone that has become everything. But then Vedanta says this absolute reality dividing itself into spirit and matter, and then becoming once again the same absolute. Reality dividing itself into spirit and matter, and then becoming one again. All that is imaginary, merely an appearance, it is not real. From the standpoint of the absolute reality itself, which is perfect unity, there has been no separation at all, because there can be no change in pure being. Pure being, existence in itself, has to be changeless. And so the question of creation doesn't arise. There can be no talk of evolution and the like from the standpoint of the absolute. But from our standpoint, from the relative standpoint, it appears as if the absolute has divided itself into two, matter and spirit, not self and self, object and subject. The two are inseparable. Inseparable in the sense that the one implies the other. They are the divided or separated parts of one original whole. And the history of the universe is simply a process of these separated parts getting back to the original wholeness. This is the reason why Swamiji held that true progress, that true civilization is always to be measured by the supremacy of spirit over matter. The progressive conquest of matter by spirit, that is what evolution or civilization really is, from the Vedantic standpoint. Anyhow, accepting from our point of view that the absolute differentiates itself and appears as spirit and matter, as subject and object, and that in the end these again become the one absolute. Why does the absolute do this? What is the reason? What is the purpose? This nobody can tell. We may as well ask ourselves, why does fire give out heat and light? All that can be said is that it is the nature of the absolute to manifest itself in this way. Just as it is the nature of fire to give out heat and light. More than this cannot be said. Then, is there no motive at all behind the creation of the world? Well, if God is ever perfect, what motive? Motive in the sense in which we understand that word. What motive could a perfect God possibly have? He has nothing to attain that he has not already attained. He has nothing to desire that he doesn't already possess. We heard last week that God is set to project and withdraw the universe without any effort or outside compulsion, as spontaneously as exhalation and inhalation, breathing out and breathing in. That the creation is sometimes described as Leela, the sport of God. God is said to create the universe out of sheer sportive pleasure from the very fullness of his nature. So that is all we can say, that it is his Leela, it is his pleasure to manifest himself in the world. Just as it is an artist's nature to express himself or herself in and through their work. But from our point of view, we could say that by this process, by the process of creation, God creates opportunities for individual souls like us to work out their destinies. That seems to be the purpose behind God's creation of this world from our point of view. This is what Vedanta says regarding the purpose of creation. Another question: if it is God alone that has become the world, as Vedanta holds, if it is God alone that has become everything, or in other words, if the world is a manifestation of God, couldn't we say that the world is God? No. Can we say that a piece of art is the artist? No, we can't say that. The piece of art is the artist's creation. In the case of God and the world, no doubt God is immanent, no doubt He dwells in the world, but His immanence doesn't mean that He is to be identified with the world. That is an entirely different thing. There is a certain doctrine that regards the universe as a manifestation of God and identifies God with the universe. It believes that the universe taken as a whole is God. And so there is no other God, but the combined substances, forces and laws that are manifested in the existing universe. I repeat, this doctrine believes that the universe taken as a whole is itself God. There is no other God but the combined substances, forces and laws that are manifested in the universe. Vedanta doesn't believe in that doctrine. Nor does it believe in the opposite doctrine that God has created the universe and having created it, remains entirely apart or aloof from it. That having created the universe, God allows His creation to govern itself through natural laws. Vedanta doesn't believe in this either. Both these theories are half-truths. According to Vedanta, God is both immanent and transcendent. He is in the world, but also beyond it. God pervades the whole of nature. Everything within nature has its existence in and through God. God has not created the world out of nothing. He has projected it out of Himself. He is its material cause as well as its efficient cause. That is to say, He is both the clay as well as the potter. That is why the Upanishads compare the universe to a spider's web. The threads come out of the spider itself, but the web is not the spider. Similarly, the world is God. The world is not God. The finite manifests the infinite, but it does not manifest the whole of the infinite. So the universe is not an exhaustive manifestation of God. It doesn't cover God's entire being. It is no doubt in Him, yet He is eternally aloof and apart from it. The universe rests on a portion of His being. This is what Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. With a single fragment of myself, I stand supporting the whole universe. With a single fragment of myself, I stand supporting the whole universe. So, one can never fully know the Lord through His manifestations in time and space. The whole universe represents only a particle of the Lord's glory. God transcends the universe. In another place, Krishna says, whatever things there be, know they are all from me alone. However, I am not in them, they are in me. That means the universe and all its beings are in the Lord, but the Lord is not in them. The universe is only an appearance that is superimposed by Maya on the Lord. That is what it means. So does that mean that at some point of time, a small fragment of the infinite God became this finite universe? No, we can't say that. Because the relation of whole and part doesn't apply to the absolute, which is everything, which is the all. That is what God is. When we speak of God as the whole and the world as the part, we use only a figurative language, which is not literally true. Then does it mean that neither the whole of the absolute nor a part of it has become the world? Yes, that is correct from the Advaita point of view. Neither the whole of the absolute nor a part of it has become this world. Because if we say the world is the whole, if the world is the whole, then the absolute becomes the world. And all our search for a God beyond this finite relative world becomes pointless. But that is not what God is. And if we say the world is a part of the absolute, then we apply to the absolute the relation of whole and part, which is not applicable to it. It's a paradox. Then how do we explain the origin of the world? Well, we can never adequately explain how this changing, finite world comes into existence. We can never explain how it is connected with the unchanging, infinite God. The Gita itself says that in the 15th chapter. There, the phenomenal existence, that is the relative universe, is compared to an immense so-called world tree. Krishna says, the world tree whose true form is not comprehended here, nor its origin, nor its end, nor even its nature. So various theories of creation have been put forward by various schools of philosophy, different schools of Hindu thought. I'll only mention 3 of them. 3 different theories of creation. The first one is called Arambhavada. Arambha means beginning. So Arambhavada is the theory of origination. The second one is Parinamavada, the theory of actual transformation. Parinama is a transformation. And the third one is Vivartavada. It is the theory of apparent modification. Sometimes it is called the theory of superimposition. So we have three main theories of creation in Hindu thought: the theory of origination, the theory of actual modification, and the theory of apparent modification. All of them trying to explain creation. So we take the first one. What is Arambhavada, this theory of origination? According to this theory, at the beginning of a world period, at the beginning of a kalpa, invisible, intangible atoms of different types, come together and unite in different ways to form the objects of the world. But what causes them to unite? There has to be an intelligent agent. This theory says there are two things that causes atoms to come together in certain ways and form the various objects of the world. The first one is the will of God. And the second factor is the destiny of souls. That is, the karma of souls that is ready to bear fruit. These are the two causes which bring the material, unconscious atoms together. The qualities of the objects that are formed by that union of atoms, these qualities differ from the qualities of the atoms themselves. So, according to this theory, the effect is entirely different from the cause. The effect does not exist in the cause before its production. In other words, a previously non-existent effect comes out of an existent cause. It comes into being entirely anew. As a piece of cloth comes into being entirely anew when the threads are put together in a certain order. The atoms combine with one another and continue in combination, giving rise to the various objects of the world. And this happens for some time, and then they begin to separate, so that the whole effect collapses. So this process of creation and dissolution goes on until the end of the world period. So this, in brief, is the Arambhavada, the theory of origination, that the creation is something new. The second one is Parinamavada, the theory of actual transformation. This is the theory of evolution. According to this, the universe consists of two eternal realities. One conscious and the other unconscious. The conscious entity is called Purusha, and the unconscious entity is called Prakriti. But in this theory, there is an infinite number of Purushas, and each Purusha is independent of another. But none of the Purushas have any qualities. So there is an infinite number of Purushas, all independent of one another, and not having any qualities. They are like silent spectators. Spectators of what? Of the changes that occur in nature, in Prakriti. But before we proceed, what is Prakriti? Prakriti is the unconscious entity in this theory. Prakriti is universal matter or universal energy. As you know, it is made up of the three gunas, qualities, sattva, rajas, and tamas. When these three gunas are in equilibrium, Prakriti is at rest. But when this equilibrium is disturbed, Prakriti becomes active and begins to evolve. So it is Prakriti that evolves itself. Purusha is just the spectator. What is it that disturbs Prakriti's equilibrium? The presence of the Purusha, the souls, the conscious entities. The evolving Prakriti is in itself blind, it is unconscious. But all its activities have a purpose. And that purpose is the fulfillment of the destiny of the Purushas. This is similar to the Vedanta belief that this world is created so that individual souls can work out their karma. It is very similar to that. The purpose is the fulfillment of the destiny of the Purushas. At the end of a world period, the world is dissolved and the three gunas of Prakriti come into equilibrium again. This is Parinamavada, the theory of actual modification. In the theory of origination, the effect is different from the cause. This is important. In the theory of origination, the effect is different from the cause, whereas in this theory of actual transformation, the effect is inherent in the cause. It is only made manifest by evolution. Nothing new is produced. Just as oil is made manifest when the oil seed is pressed. Then we come to the third one, Vivartavada, the theory of apparent transformation. The first one was the theory of origination. The second one is a theory of evolution. And this is a theory of appearance and reality. According to some schools of Vedanta, the cause, without itself undergoing any change, the cause, without itself undergoing any change, produces an effect. Threads have to be woven together in order to produce a piece of cloth. Oil seeds have to be pressed together to produce oil. In both these cases, the cause undergoes a change. So these analogies cannot explain creation in which the creator remains unaffected by the process of creation. This is what Vedanta says. The creator remains unaffected by the process of creation. That is why Advaita philosophers use the well-known examples of a rope appearing as a snake, a piece of seashell appearing as silver, or a desert appearing as a mirage. In these analogies, the rope, the shell, and the desert, these are realities, while the snake, the silver, and the desert are only appearances. What do these illustrations indicate? Two things. One, the effect depends upon the cause. Without the existence of a cause, there is no effect. And two, the cause is changeless. It is totally unaffected by the effect it produces. The effect is not the result of a change that has occurred in the cause. What is really God appears to our finite intelligence as the universe of time and space and name and form. Just as a piece of rope appears as a snake in dim light. When we see clearly that it is only a rope, then we are no longer afraid of it. We no longer try to run away from it. In the same way, when we realize God, we are no longer troubled by the appearances of the world. When avidya, ignorance, when avidya is removed by vidya, knowledge, or when false knowledge, it is not, avidya is not exactly ignorance, it is sometimes the technical word that is used to describe avidya is anti-knowledge. Let us say when false knowledge is replaced by true perception, then what happens? Then one rises to a higher order of reality. It is like a dreamer coming into the waking state. This is not theory. It is a matter of actual spiritual experience. The lives of all great mystics of the world have testified to this fact. But how exactly is the reality connected with the appearance? That is the question. But this we will never be able to see in the present state of our knowledge. That is why the relation is said to be the relation between God and the world, between the absolute and the world and the relative. That is said to be anirvachaniya, indefinable. All one can say is God, by his indefinable power of illusion, brings about this wonderful phenomenon of creation. So, Vivartavada, this theory of apparent transformation, that is the Advaita theory of creation. Without undergoing any change whatsoever, God manifests himself in diverse ways through the modifications of Maya. Please remember, all changes are occurring in Maya, in appearance. They are not happening in reality. And God, being the sole ground of all this apparent multiplicity, of diversity, God is said to be the material cause of this universe of variety, because there is only one reality. The one appearing as the many. The change is only apparent. This apparent modification of the causal substance, that is called vivarta in Vedanta. The actual modification is called parinama. In the rope snake analogy, The apparent snake is the vivarta of the rope. The snake has not become the rope. It appears like that. But a cloth is parinama of the woven threads. The woven threads coming together have actually become the cloth. So, what we can say is this creation, the creation is due to the parinama of what? An apparent transformation of Brahman. This is very important to remember. The creation is due to the parinama of Maya and the vivarta of Brahman. That means the universe is not a product of Brahman. Brahman has nothing to do with the universe. The relation, the causal relation between Brahman and the creation is only apparent. But then, causal relationships, cause and effect. Causal relationships have significance within the domain of Maya. It holds between one mode of Maya and another, but not between Brahman and the phenomenal world. Within the domain of relativity, cause and effect exists, but it doesn't hold between phenomenon and reality. Brahman is the sole support of the entire range of causes and effects, but it transcends them all, untouched by them all. So this is Vivartavada, the theory of apparent transformation. Now we can come to the concept of Maya. What does Maya actually mean? Does it really mean illusion? If Maya is illusion, then is this world unreal? These are some questions that immediately come up as soon as the subject of Maya is raised. So, before we begin a proper discussion of the concept of Maya, let us try to address these questions in a simple way. First of all, it was not Vedanta. It was not Vedanta, but some Buddhist philosophers who preached that the world is unreal. But their opinion was promptly criticized as unorthodox, unacceptable. No orthodox Vedic school has ever supported the theory of illusionism, that everything is unreal. On the contrary, Hindu philosophical schools treat this question of the reality of the world. This question, Hindu philosophers have treated at three different levels, three different stages. In the first stage, the facts of the world, the facts of experience, were all analyzed and reduced to a number of categories. That is, to a number of classes like substance, quality, relation, and so on. They are all regarded as fundamental and really existing. As we saw in the theory of Arambhavada, in the theory of origination, there are a number of realities that are eternal. In the second stage, these multiple realities were reduced to just two, Purusha and Prakriti, which we saw in the theory of Parinamavada, actual transformation. In the third stage, the different schools of Vedanta examine the possibility of reducing these two, Purusha and Prakriti, or consciousness and matter, to one. Vedanta examines the possibility of reducing the two categories to one. The dualistic schools of Vedanta hold that the world is real but dependent on God in one way or another. So one of the two categories, that is the world, is made subordinate to the other. Advaita goes a step further. Shankaracharya does not deny the reality of the world, as he is often supposed to do, accused of doing. Far from teaching such a doctrine, if you read his commentaries, he has in fact gone to great lengths to refute, to disprove the Buddhist theory of illusionism. According to him, the world is as real as you and I are, but no more, no less. A subject implies an object, and an object implies a subject. Each depends upon the other. So the world is definitely not an illusion. It exists as really as we or our mind exists. As long as the mind is real, the world is also real. But both belong to a lower order of reality than the absolute. They are only relatively real, while Brahman or God is absolutely real. Let's take, for example, a drama. Do the characters in the drama look upon themselves or other characters or the scenes as illusion? No, of course not. But aren't the characters really only personifications of the dramatist's imagination? The dramatist has conceived the characters and scenes in his mind, and the drama only embodies his imagination. That is what a drama really is. The drama is nothing but the dramatist's sweet dream. You see, there are two orders of reality here. The characters of the drama on the one hand, and the author or creator of the drama on the other. Within the limits of the drama, everything is real. The plot, the actors, the acting, the scenes, all that is real. But the dramatist belongs to a higher order of reality. From the author's standpoint, it is all only an ideal creation, a product of the author's imagination. In the same way, from God's standpoint, we and the world we deal with are all unreal. But between ourselves and relatively to one another, we are terribly real. The world is there, outside and independent of our mind. But there is nothing outside or external to the mind of God. If that is the case, then why do the scriptures also sometimes describe the world as a dream? Yes, they do. But the scriptures have to be understood properly. To whom is the world a dream? Certainly not to us who live in the world. A dream is no dream to the dreamer. It's a reality to the person who dreams. It is only to the awakened person that it is a dream. Similarly, it is not to us who live in the world, but to the yogis in their samadhi, when they are identified with the changeless Brahman. In that state, the world seems unreal. We are all of us in a world that is very, very real to us. But we aspire to attain a state where this seemingly real world is recognized for what it is. As an appearance, as a mere appearance. We aspire to attain a state when this fact is recognized and the world ceases to have any terrors for us. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was talking to a few devotees in the presence of a woman who had recently lost her only daughter, and she was stricken with grief. The lady was a widow. Her daughter had been married to a very aristocratic man, a landlord in Calcutta with the title of Raja. Whenever the daughter visited her mother, she was escorted by servants in uniform. Then the mother's heart used to swell with pride. But just a few days ago, the daughter had died, and now the mother was beside herself with sorrow, and for the last few days, she had been running to the master like an insane person. She was eager to know whether Sri Ramakrishna could suggest any remedy for her unbearable grief. But without addressing her directly, Sri Ramakrishna says to others in the room, he says, the truth is that God alone is real and all else unreal. Men, women, children, houses, all these are like the magic of the magician. The magician comes upon the stage, strikes his wand, and says, "Come delusion, come confusion." Then he says to the audience, "Open the lid of the pot, see the birds fly into the sky." And the audience are treated to that scene. But the magician alone is real, and his magic is unreal. The unreal exists for a second and then vanishes. Then Sri Ramakrishna continues half humorously. Shiva was sitting in Kailasa, and his companion Nandi the bull, was with him. Suddenly there was a terrific noise. Nandi was startled and he asked, "Lord, what was that?" Shiva said, "Ravana is born." Ravana, that great demon. Ravana is born, that is what. A few moments later, there was another terrific noise. "What is this now?" Nandi asked. And Shiva said, "Now Ravana is dead." Sri Ramakrishna says, birth and death are like magic. You see the magic for a second and then it disappears. God alone is real and all else unreal. Water alone is real. Its bubbles appear and disappear. They disappear into the very water from which they rise. God is like an ocean. Living beings are its bubbles. They are born there and they die there. Children are like the few small bubbles around a big one. So, if we have understood these words properly, the world is said to be unreal, not in the sense that it is illusion. We cannot deny that we experience it as a matter of fact. It is only unreal in the sense that it is passing, short-lived, and not ultimately real. But during its brief existence, it is more sorrow than joy. That is the fact. We read in the Yoga Sutras, to the discriminating person, everything is painful. What we heard at the beginning. Good and evil are both evil. To the discriminating, everything is painful. So Sri Ramakrishna says once again, God alone is real. Make an effort to cultivate love for Him. Find out the means to realize Him. What will you gain by grieving? This is an echo of what Krishna has also said in the Bhagavad Gita. There he says, having come into this transitory, joyless world, worship me. At least we can thank God it is transitory. It is painful, but that too will pass. Now we have almost come to the end of our time, so I won't begin our discussion of the concept of Maya. We'll keep it for next week. So, thank you all. Thank you very much for attending these classes.